Hi there, Juleka here. Before we get started, I want to invite you, yes, you, to be a guest on the show. If you're an adult and a child of immigrants, and they could be from anywhere in the world, really, I'd love to talk to you about the conversations that are necessary but challenging, especially right about now. So whatever you're all getting into, I want to know about it. Politics, money, holidays, marriage, kids, everything. So send me an email directly at juleka@lantiguawilliams.com and we'll get you on the show. I can't wait to hear from you. Hi, everybody. Today I'm talking to Stephanie, and we're talking about sex. So you might want to listen by yourself and with headphones on. Stephanie has a very close relationship with her mom. They confide in each other about most things, but they've never been able to talk about sex or intimacy. And this has been hard for Stephanie. I imagine it's hard for many of us. So let's get into it.
My name is Stephanie. I'm 25. I was born and raised in Miami. I am first generation. I currently live in Miami, and I am a social worker. I work with young children and their families. And in my family, we call our parents Mamí and Papí. My relationship with my mom growing up was good for the most part. I think we had a very tight-knit, close relationship. I always felt comfortable sharing things with her, and we always had very good communication, very little conflict, I would say. The first time I experienced sex was when I was still living with my mom, actually. I did want to talk to my mom before it happened and afterwards because of all of the questions one has when you're a virgin and you haven't had any sexual intercourse. There's many questions. But I never did because I knew how conservative her views were, how uncomfortable the topic of sex would make her feel. Her reactions whenever the topic of sex would come into the conversation, she would just try to change the subject. If I ever brought up the conversation of sex in the context of other people's experience, because I never felt talking about my own experiences. If I shared that if maybe a friend had a negative experience, she would say, well, she shouldn't be doing that in the first place. She'd say things like, well, this is why there's so much conflict in like young people's lives because they're sleeping around. They're just too quick to have sex with, the first person that they meet. And this is why you see so many young pregnant girls. So just by listening to, those words and seeing her own like physical reaction, I knew, that's not a topic that, she would want to even talk about. The first time that I brought up the subject about being sexually active was after a volunteering experience I had. So I've always volunteered with an agency. I'm not going to mention the name, but it's an agency that deals with HIV and STD prevention. I learned a lot about sex through volunteering with them. I shared something I had learned with her, and I told her, something about it that I experienced when I had sex the first time. And I try not to emphasize too much that it was me that had experienced. I try to just kind of quickly put it into the conversation and then just kind of move on. But of course she noticed, and she was startled. She was not expecting it. She said, "Whoa, what did I just hear? Did you just say that when you were sexually active, this happened?" And I clearly just say, I just remember telling her, yeah, this was something that occurred, but, everything ended up being okay. And I think she just didn't know how to respond. She didn't know what to say to me. I would have wanted her to tell me that, these are things that happen. It's a normal part of life. But she didn't. She tried to shame me in some way. So I would have liked to have heard her be more supportive. I would say that she has not had the best sexual experiences. In terms of relationships and dating, she's always shared pretty negative experiences. So by association, I would say that her sexual experiences haven't been the best. I've had many negative associations with sex throughout most of my life. And it wasn't until I was a little older, I started to educate myself and see sex in a new light by just, getting more credible information. And there's still a bit of shame attached, not gonna lie. Yeah. I've confided in her and trusted in her for almost everything. And to leave sex out just always felt odd to me. I, never understood why it was so taboo.
Hi, everybody. Juleka here. I wanted to tell you about a new podcast that I've been listening to. It's called An Arm and a Leg. And wait for it, it's about the cost of healthcare. Dan Weissman, the host, he's a reporter, and he took on the challenge of making something that can be enraging, terrifying, even depressing, entertaining, empowering, and useful. So on episodes, you hear from people like a woman who fought with health insurance companies for 25 years. It was her job, but she loved it. And on one of the episodes, she's sharing all kinds of tips for how you can navigate these very frustrating conversations. An Arm and a Leg is funny, smart, and warm. It's full of really useful information for those times when you're feeling anxious or upset about having to deal with the insurance companies. Listen to An Arm and a Leg wherever you listen to this podcast. Sex and intimacy have to be among the hardest things to talk about with our parents, for anyone. But I definitely think they're harder to talk about with your parents if they're from another country and you grew up in the United States. There just has to be a way for us to figure this out. So to help us, I did what I always do. I called in an expert.
Hi, my name is Dulce Rodriguez. I am a clinical social worker. I live here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I've been living here for the last 7 years. I was raised in Mexico. My area of specialty is I'm actually getting certified as a sexuality educator. And so hopefully that'll be done by next year.
What did you hear in Stephanie's story?
Echo. Not echo like technical issues, but identification. I think that a lot of people that are going to hear that story, myself included, can identify with most everything about her story. I heard more than wanting to get information from Mamí, from her mom, providing or giving her this new information that she had about sexuality. I think that it was more about building that bond and that relationship. In a nutshell, that's kind of what I heard.
So you said echo. I'm assuming that means you hear this a lot when you work with clients.
Absolutely.
So when people talk about wanting to discuss intimacy and sex with their parents, what are some of the reasons, right? Because information is available quite literally in our hands, right? So if we have a specific question, we can probably find out the specific answer. So clearly this is about more than just getting information. What is it that's at the root of this desire to have these conversations with our parents?
Every time we talk about sexuality with our parents as adults or with our children or with anyone in our family, I think that we're looking for a bond, relationship, a connection. As you are absolutely right. If it was just about information, with internet, we can just go and search it. The ability of talking about something that, for instance, like let's take Stephanie's mom, treating the issue like a taboo. And if you think about it, if I can speak about sexuality with my parents, for instance, is there anything else that is going to be more challenging to speak about? So it's kind of like that last frontier. We will be breaking down or bringing down kind of like the last frontier of trust and connection with those that we love, not just our parents, of course.
I love how you phrase that, because it is something that we build up to. So how do you advise people to approach these very delicate conversations with their parents?
Let's take the case of Stephanie. I even made like a little, I'm full of acronyms because when we give class, that's how people remember too. So I made this acronym of STAR, like a star. S, sexuality conversations are about relationship, not so much information. T is for take it all in. Take your parents or whomever you're speaking with. Take it all in. So follow their agenda, not yours. A is for acknowledge. Acknowledge the level of readiness that this person may or may not have to speak about this issue because of what happened to them. And then R, reactions, read those reactions and act based on those. So maybe Stephanie, approaching her mom can think about this. Okay, I'm trying to establish even a stronger connection with her. It's not so much about the information. It's not so much about what words are we going to use or what topic are we going to talk about. We're going to leave that to the side for now. So Stephanie will have to take where her mom is. For instance, mom, she said something, she pretty much slut shamed. That's what happened to those girls. She was kind of asking for it. So take that in. Stephanie can see that there has to be a lot of oppression that my mom went through in order for her to be thinking this way. Acknowledge that. And we do so by saying, it must have been really hard for you. Or tell me more about that. What do you mean? Kind of like playing dumb a little bit, if you will, because you want to explore what they have to say. Really what you're doing is telling her, I'm not here to judge you, and I'm not here to school you on this, right? To teach you. Please, I want to know more.
I want to ask you, what does an adult child need to understand or need to know or need to want to know about their parents' own experiences with sex when and as they enter into this conversation?
Well, number one, it's my history or my history of sexuality or my sexuality experiences belong to me. So I have the right to share those with and when and how I can and I want, right? That's kind of like the first one. It doesn't matter if I'm sharing it in public or with my beloved daughter or with my partner or partners, my parents, it doesn't matter. So the first one is that sexuality story belongs to that person. And that takes us to the second very element that needs to be there, consent. It's no surprise. It's no surprise that Stephanie's mother has only negative things to say or is speaking negatively in a negative context about sexuality. We are just learning about consent. Older generations, of course, never heard of this, or the concept didn't even exist. So we need to be very aware of that. And again, I say, once you establish that bond, all of these conversations, topics they're going to be kind of like a byproduct of this bond, in this connection.
What else do you think is important for this intragenerational dialogue to be successful, for both parties to keep in mind?
It's never too late to start these conversations. It's never too late. Just following the steps that I gave you, being mindful of the readiness of this other person across from you. It's never too late. And you don't have to, when we think, let's talk about sex and sexuality, most people think, we're going to be talking about pornography and positions and how to give better oral sex, or, which is very important. And we should be talking more about that. But, that's starting kind of like at the hardest place, the riskiest, if you will, topics. So I say, start talking about body autonomy, for instance. Make questions. Hey, when you had me, did you have choices? Like when you could have me? Or tell me more. Tell me more about how you got ready, or maybe you weren't ready to have me or to become pregnant with me. Or did you shave your legs? Or when girls, when you were in school, did girls shave their legs? Well, was that a thing? How did they do it? Or even talking about periods, right? That's such an icebreaker, a good icebreaker. Were tampons like everywhere where you lived? Right? So having conversations that may not scream, we're talking about sexuality. They're not so... the way we see sexuality typically, but that are certainly related to sexuality, and they can really start creating that bond.
Fantastic. I love all those suggestions. Thank you so much, Dulce.
Oh, thank you.
All right, let's recap what we learned from Dulce. Don't stress. Conversations about sex have more to do with building trust and connection than with exchanging data or information. Go slow. Start with something that's related to sex. Periods, body hair, shaving, all kinds of other things. And then use that conversation starter to feel out the level of comfort and to move on from there. And remember, ask questions first. Encourage your parent to share their thoughts and experiences to better understand where they're coming from. This can help you continue the conversation without forcing it. Thank you for listening and for sharing us. How to Talk to Mamí and Papí About Anything is an original production of Lantigua, Williams & Co. Virginia Lora produced this episode. Michael Castañeda mixed it. Dulce Rodriguez is our founding producer and social media editor. Cedric Wilson is our lead producer. I'm the show's creator, Juleika Lantigua Williams. On Twitter and Instagram, we're at Talk to Mamí Papí. Please subscribe and rate us on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and anywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts. Bye, everybody. Same place next week.